Hello, Jacob. You are up next, sir.
Hey Bart, how's it going?
How's it going? Where are you playing out of, Jacob?
We're playing out of MGM in Detroit.
MGM in Detroit. That is actually another stomping ground of one of our coaches, content creators. Terp himself plays out of there. He plays PLO for the most part. So I have never played there though. One of the few places. MGM is it just MGM Detroit. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah,
I've
it's
actually
got
never
some good action games here.
I've actually never been to Detroit. Funny enough. All right. So is this a 2-5 or
This is a 5-10.
5-10? How often did they get that game going?
So it runs regularly on Fridays, and then this one is actually on Wednesday. The last 2 months they've been starting it up at about 11 a.m.
Okay.
About half the time it runs into the night, half the time it breaks at about 4 p.m. And I usually play in it if it runs into the nighttime.
And is it uncapped?
2K max.
Oh, I like that. I've always said I like when they actually put caps on these quote unquote higher stakes games. I think it makes the game better. I've said in the past that one of the best games that I played on a regular basis was the daytime Hollywood Park game in Los Angeles, where we played 5-10, 25, or 5-10, 20, 5-10 mandatory 20 with a 2,500 cap. That was a great game. It kept all the really good players in LA out because it wasn't uncapped, and it was just bigger stakes. All right.
Yeah, that's how I've kind of found this one. So the Wednesday one is actually a smaller cap than Friday. So the Wednesday game usually does seem a little bit better than the Friday game.
Okay, so how deep are you to start this hand?
We are 2K effective.
Okay, so 2K effective. Okay.
And so the action folds to the villain, who's going to be in the cutoff,
Okay.
and he raises to $30. And just a little bit of background on him. I have quite a bit of history with him at the 2-5 game. He's in his mid-20s. He doesn't play full-time, but I know he's a studied winning reg in the games. And he's a pretty aggressive guy who likes to take some big sizings in pots.
So cutoff raise to 30.
Yep.
Okay.
And then I'm on the button with King of Clubs, Queen of Hearts.
King of Clubs, Queen of Hearts. Okay.
And so a good amount of the time I do some 3-betting here. But I've been 4-betting him the last about 3 hands we played together. So this time I just decide to flat.
And that is possibly because you don't want to get 4-bet and you don't want to, and the hand is too good to fold. This is not, I'm assuming that's the case. This is not a 3-blind scenario. I always say this where it's like if it's 5-10, 20, or if there's a mandatory straddle on there, you are definitely want to incentivize to 3-bet so that, get the blinds out of there. The only thing I would say about this, and I've made this flat call before, is just the skill level of the players in the blind specifically. It gets into a ripe situation for someone to squeeze here if you go cut off button call, you being the button, and then I don't know if you want to double flat here with like king queen off if someone comes swinging out of the blinds.
Yeah, it wouldn't be too great, but the guys in the blinds were relatively passive, so I wasn't expecting a 3-bet from them.
Okay. I would say that I mostly 3-bet here with king queen versus cutoff. Maybe do some more calling if the raise came out a little bit earlier. But okay, so you call, and then what happens here?
And then both the blinds fold, so heads up.
So your heads up. All right, so blinds fold and heads up. Again, most of the time you do most of your calling on the button, or of course in the big blind, but just because there's less people who get squeezed. All right, so let's look at it's like 60 or 65 or something like that, or 70, 75.
Yep, 75 to the flop. Yep, and it's Queen of Diamonds, 10 of Spades, 3 of Spades.
Queen of Diamonds, 10 of Spades, 3 of Spades. So hero with King Queen has top pair. Okay.
And the cutoff actually decides to check.
Okay.
And so when he checks to me, I decided to make a bet of $30, which I think I could have went larger, closer to 50. Maybe get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, on this type of board, which is a 2-flush connected board, you start to think about what is he going to check here to check call. And if he like check calls here with the ace king or ace jack, which is possible because he didn't think you're going to fold out anything, and he might have like nut or second nut, no pair, then I think you're still getting the same calling frequency. Like it's not like ace king or ace jack is going to fold to 50. And the lower pairs below a 10 can't call. Like, I don't really even, I mean, maybe like nines with the nine of diamonds, but you see how it starts to get like a little bit treacherous. Jack's going to continue anyways. So
Yep.
I can get on board with that of a larger sizing.
Okay.
So check, hero bets 30.
Yep. And then the cutoff thinks for about 10 to 15 seconds, and he raises to 150.
Interesting. Another check raise. Another C-bet check raise, whatever you want to call it. To 150.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the first thing, right off the bat, you think about, well, I block pocket queens, but maybe pocket queens doesn't do as much check raising on this board as 10-10, because you'd rather have 10-10 to go for a check raise. Gives your, as the pre-flop raiser, right, gives your opponent more opportunity to have a queen here and bet call.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of some other hands that might take a check raise. You wouldn't think that like aces or kings or ace queen would do a check. Usually that's more of a play that you make on a board where there's no two pair that's really represented, and also connection, like queen seven deuce or something like that. I mean, it's possible he could have those hands. Of course, you block king. I would be surprised to see an overpair do this on this board as opposed to, say, queen seven deuce. I mean, you can't just fold. I mean, you're not be the weakest nit ever, right?
Yeah, that kind of fell off the discussion.
Slow poker in the live chat, slow poker vlog. I know I'm tight as fuck, but I'm folding right now. Come on, slow poker. I'm gonna check raise you every single time if I ever play again. I'll see slow poker I'm sure I'll see him at the World Series. All right, so you call, I assume, right?
Yes, correct.
All right, so 375. Okay.
Okay, so the turn comes the 5 of clubs.
All right, so queen of diamonds, 10 of spades, 3 of spades, 5 of clubs. Hero who just flatted with the king queen off, bets the flop, gets check raised and calls. Pot's 375, turns the 5 of clubs. Okay.
Yep, and so the cutoff thinks for a little bit again, not too long, and he bets for 375 total pot.
By the way, I think I kind of washed over. I mean, I sort of washed over it on the flop. I mean, obviously, what do you think his flop check raising range is?
I think his check raising range is usually sets, so any of the sets he could have.
Queen 10, maybe?
Queen 10. Yep, I think Queen 10. I did give him, I was thinking a fair bit of overpairs and ace queen, although highly unlikely. I thought there might be a combo or two of that in there. And then for the bluffs, just all the combo draws, jack 9, king jack of spades, 8 9 of spades, a lot of the ace x of spades, and then even some I've seen him do this with some gutters before. So
it's interesting to think about what types of draws would play this as a check raise here. 8 9 of spades as opposed to, say, like king jack of spades. I mean, you wonder if the hands that typically somebody would play a queen with that would bet, like king jack of spades, would just want to do more betting as opposed to go for a check raise, even though it's a mega combo draw, whereas maybe 8 9 of spades expects to get less folds based upon what they have in their hand, right? But with that being said, I mean, I don't think anyone's really expecting somebody to bet fold a queen here. I mean, for the most part, I usually will bet the big draws on the flop here, like an ace king of spades, ace jack of spades, something like that. But I mean, obviously it's possible. So we get the biggest brick in the deck, or one of the biggest bricks in the deck, in the form of the 5 of clubs, and the cutoff goes pot here again. I mean, this is one of these ones where, we talk about like Fifth Street Chicken on Crush Live Poker. I mean, it's a brick and he's betting large, but I don't think that really changes much. Now, so that would mean that I would continue a lot, right, across here on the turn. Where I think it changes, though, is even if the river is a brick, and this is the whole thing where people are like, well, how can you call the flop check raise and then the turn, and then if the river's a brick, how can you fold? Well, what's changed in the hand is the fact that the guy has actually bet 3 times. Because what you'll see here is somebody might check, of the draw portion of this guy's range, right? Maybe he check raises flop and continues on a brick turn, but not all those hands are continuing at the end, and as they're not supposed to, right? In the form of draws. So that's where it kind of changes. I assume you're going to call across this turn, right?
Yes, that is correct. I was kind of thinking through, and like you said, this kind of was one of the main decision points for me. I figured after thinking for a while, if the river comes a brick, probably call a lot of bet sizes, but kind of depends. But I did end up calling here, yes.
All right, so you make the call, and now the pot's 11.25, right?
Correct.
Okay. By the way, too, I mean, you just wonder. I was kind of thinking out loud, like, would sets take this type of sizing? I don't know why you wouldn't. If he has 10-10 or 3-3 or queen 10, I would definitely take the sizing on the turn after I get a bet call of a check raise, because you as the villain caller are either on a draw or you're still probably not releasing a queen. So I don't know why you wouldn't. You might even overbet the pot. All right, 11.25 to the end. Okay.
Yep. And the river comes out the four of clubs.
Okay, I mean, that's a pretty big brick with the exception of like him backing into some sort of straight, like 6-7 of spades or like ace deuce, right, of spades, which not normally the types of hands that are check raised because they're kind of naked-ish draws on the flop. So I don't think that's all that going to be all that relevant here.
That was kind of my thought too. I thought maybe ace deuce of spades, but I figured the 6-7 of spades likely just leads on the flop, kind of like you were talking about.
Yeah.
And so yeah, the pot at 11.25. He thinks for very short time again, maybe 10 seconds, and jams for about 14.50.
Well, it's definitely it's one of these live interesting sizings one where you sort of wonder, but it is 5-10. I mean, you get into these weird things, and we've got many calls about this where sometimes, like when you bet larger, you get less fold equity from your opponent's perspective. That's kind of like at 2-5 and below. So you start to think out loud when a guy bets like this, like what is he trying to do here? Wouldn't he bet less with value? But I mean, at 5-10, do you have any background on this guy?
Yeah, I play with him quite a bit at 2-5 over the last year. I know he's a studied player and he's a winning in those games. And he's always pretty aggressive when he's in pots. He's always fighting for pots. So
I mean, yeah, I mean it's close, but I would kind of lean towards giving up. Somebody had said too, and I don't know how possible this is, but if I could ever see a guy capable of making like a max value super thin line with like aces here, then it even becomes more of a fold here at the end. Your combo in your hand is slightly better to call with than if you had the king of spades in your hand, right?
yep.
So there's that. Like if somehow you had king of spades, queen of hearts, then of course that, makes it impossible for him to have like king jack of spades, ace king of spades. So it would become even more of a likely fold. But are you a reg and is he a reg? Like you guys have played each other quite a bit or what?
Yeah, I don't play professionally, but I play about 3 to 4 times a week, and he's about the same. So yeah, we know each other quite well.
So does he think that you're scared of the stakes or anything like that? That he might be trying to push you around?
I think he believes I might fold to him a bit much. So there might be some of that, but I play the 5-10 not every time, but fairly regularly. So I don't think it's that side.
So Tom Rao in the live chat says, way too many draws missed, but he's aware of that, which I assume that Tom would mean that he would call less here at the end because it looks like the preflop raiser might bust out on draws. Nate says that this is polar to probably like queen 10 plus, right? Well, but I said, if the guy ever does this with aces, it becomes even a harder call. That's why sometimes not only do you increase your win rate in live poker by making thin value bets, but you get into these spots where people actually they're almost forced to bluff catch you less because you can have sort of a very thin mergy bet that they lose to when they're bluff catching you. Like, for example, if this caller called with king, queen, and the guy had aces somehow. I'm not saying that he has that, but I would tend to fold here personally, but I think it's probably pretty close. And that seems to be what the consensus in the chat says too. What ended up happening here?
Yeah, so I kind of had the same thought process. I was tanking for maybe 3 minutes, just thinking about all the draws that missed. I know there's a ton. He probably doesn't play them all this way fully, and I was really just thinking he's representing two pair plus in the sets. And so after thinking for quite a while, I end up putting in the call.
So hero calls, and again, hero does block queen 10, right? Because he's got a queen. So I mean, you could count the combos. It's just hard to, you can't just take all the combos on face because you don't know at what percentage people would be doing certain hands with. You can only really kind of guesstimate, but we can see that there are 3 full combos of 10-10 and 3-3, right? Those are all possible and viable. And then hero has the queen of hearts, the queen of diamonds is out there, and the 10 of spades is there. But cutoff probably opens queen 10 off, though, right? I mean, it's not an UTG open. So the later you go, the more value he actually has in the because there's way more queen 10 off. That's another thing too, where you actually might lean maybe more towards a call if the raise came from somebody, a position preflop where queen 10 off was not represented. But here I think it is represented. And when you have a queen in your hand, now there's still, 6 combos of queen 10 off, whereas there's only 1 combo of queen 10 suited with this flop distribution. That makes this, that's a huge factor here. And I think he's opening queen 10 off from the cutoff, whereas he wouldn't in the under the gun spot. So that sort of leans towards kind of fold too. All right, so hero makes a hero call, and then what's the reveal here?
Yep, and so he says wheel and turns over the ace deuce of diamonds, actually, not the suspected one.
Ace deuce of diamonds. Oh my goodness.
Yes, so when he said that, I thought I was going to see the ace deuce of spades, and I was very shocked to see the diamonds.
What is this guy playing? Does he have Google glasses on? Is he using RTA? If you told me this was an online, and I don't know if ace deuce of diamonds is taken for a check raise on the flop, but hero calls, loses to ace deuce of diamonds, which was, by the way, a backdoor flush draw that ran into the backdoor wheel. But whenever somebody suspects that somebody's getting sort of cheated online by somebody who is like using real-time assistance, that's what RTA is. This hand would be one of these ones where you look at and you're like, if you ever see somebody like make a backdoor weird bluff and then you run it through a solver and like that hand is the one that's taken as a partial, like if you're playing online, it's a pretty good chance that you know the guy's using RTA. Obviously, this is live, so.
Yeah, I was expecting to lose to a couple hands, but that wasn't in the thought process.
Wow, that's really something. Thanks for the call, Jacob. I appreciate it.